You're listening to 99.7 Rima FM, and the month of April has been Autism Awareness Month, and I've got Jackie Hayes with me in the studio this morning, and we're talking about autism and the related disabilities. And good morning to you, Jackie.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining me today. And now you're a mother of three boys.
Yes, that's right. I have Ethan, who is 7 in June, and he was diagnosed with Autism Spectrum Disorder in the mild range with a significant language delay when he was about 4.5. And I have twin boys, Josiah and Sebastian. Josiah was diagnosed about a year ago with autism and significant language delay, and Sebastian has just recently been diagnosed with Asperger's. That
must be very difficult for you, but we should probably talk about just what is autism.
Yes, well, about 1 in 160 Australians have an autism spectrum disorder, so that would be around 130,000 people, with around 1,500 people being newly diagnosed each year. So it's, I think nowadays it's becoming a lot more prevalent, and you're hearing more about children that are on the spectrum. 4 times as many males, of course, as females are affected by autism. And as I just mentioned, 3 of my boys are on the spectrum. Autism spectrum disorder is, I guess, what they would say is a lifelong developmental disability. And how you would characterise that might be marked difficulties in social interaction or an impaired communication, particularly in expression. Restricted and repetitive interests and behaviours, and sensory sensitivities. So when you have a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder, your paediatrician would be looking for 3 fairly major criteria in that list to diagnose a child. So yeah, you might have a child that's fairly sensitive in terms of noise or crowds, but his language is appropriate, his behaviour and social interaction is appropriate, so therefore that child just has a sensitive ear. However, if you've got 3 of those categories, then the alarm bells start ringing, I guess.
Yeah, there's no cure for this either, is there?
No, there's not a cure as such, and people aren't actually aware why this occurs in children. But you know, we have obviously we pray about our children every day, and we've seen incredible breakthroughs, particularly with Ethan, who's now in school. So no, there's not a cure. However, there is appropriate learned behaviour. Obviously, what is really important to any parent is early intervention. The earlier that you start seeking specialist support, the better it is, obviously. Yeah. So preschool early intervention is very important.
I was going to say early intervention is probably the key here.
Yes, yeah. Definitely. The quicker you get in, as soon as if you're a parent that has got some concerns about a child in terms of his or her behaviour, social interaction, language, I would suggest that you go and seek some, specialist. Well, initially your GP, obviously, to talk about the situation, and then your GP would probably refer you to a paediatrician that may have a majoring in behaviours or developmental issues. So yeah, that would be the first point of contact.
My guest today is Jackie Hayes, and Jackie is a parent of children with autism. And we've mentioned that there are different ranges, I suppose, with autism, starting from mild to more severe. And what advice would you give to parents who may think that their child has autism?
Yeah.
Yeah. What should they do first?
Well, some of the early signs, I guess. Personally, with Ethan, we had a beautiful, placid, very quiet little boy that loved to put his cars in a row, and was particularly pedantic about certain things, and we used to have a bit of a laugh saying he's going to be a car park attendant when he's older, and we tried for a very long time to just get him to wave because he was pretty much non-verbal, and we just saw that there was obviously some issues in terms of his development, but we just said he was quite delayed. However, at about 3.5, we were struggling with some of the behaviours that Ethan was performing, and just talking to our mother-in-law one day, my mother-in-law, Barbara, she said, Jack, the best thing you can do is just go and speak to someone and see if you can get some strategies for this behaviour. And it was fairly aggressive behaviour with his brothers. Again, his language was still very delayed, and socially there was very little interaction. So I guess the alarm bells were ringing. And those are the early signs as well. If, early signs being, I guess, inexplicable tantrums or unusual interests, and of course your sensory, which I mentioned earlier about being afraid of everyday sounds, and you're using peripheral vision to look at objects, and you might eat very limited range of foods and things like that, and of course the communication delay and social skills. So from that point of view, we went and spoke to our GP, who referred us, and within half an hour that specialist said there's absolutely no doubt that your child is, experiencing autistic tendencies. He's performing autistic tendencies. And we were obviously flabbergasted at that time. However, a very, very good friend of Ethan's at preschool, his name was Dawn, and Dawn has two beautiful parents, Cole and Andrea, and interestingly enough, the two boys were almost non-verbal to a certain extent, but they were the bestest of friends, and they just used to play with their Hot Wheels cars together, and I just found that a little bit interesting at the time. And when he was diagnosed, Cole and Andrea were, to us, just an absolute godsend. They were people that had been through the journey, and they were just obviously incredibly good friends to us that helped us get through what we had to get through.
I have seen, or saw in the news just this week actually, that a person with autism could actually, by memory, draw the entire city skyline of Sydney just by looking at it for 20 minutes. And there's a special name for this as well, isn't there?
Savant. Autism savant, and it's someone that is extremely gifted in a particular area, and obviously this man has got an incredible visual memory, and again it's such a strength with children or adults with autism that visually they're visual learners. Anything that they process usually is processed a lot clearer for them when it's a visual communication or a visual picture or whatever. So certainly one of Ethan's strengths would be visual learning. This artist is obviously extraordinary at what he does. Quite incredible, really. So
Jackie Hayes is my guest this morning on Rima FM, and we're talking about autism, the month of April being Autism Awareness Month.